morning everyone. My name is Devika S. Krishan, Assistant Professor, Department of Psychology from Kristu Jayanti College. So today, I'll be discussing language development, which is a subtopic from lifespan psychology. So first, let's discuss about mastering language. So how does an infant understand a complex dynamic association, which is language? We will be talking more about that today. Before that, we need to understand what language actually is. So linguistics defined language as a communication system in which a limited number of signals, sounds, or letters are combined together along with some agreed set of rules which are agreed by a huge number of population to convey infinite number of messages among each other. So that is what language is. And as the definition itself suggests, it's a complex organization of several factors such as sounds, letters, words, gestures, etc. Now we'll be looking more at how an infant learns language from the beginning and how language develops throughout one's lifespan. So let's move on to seeing how a child's language learning process goes on. So firstly, those are basic sounds which are called phonemes. So if you have ever seen an infant, the first words that they would be seeing or they would be saying would be something like ma, pa, or just random phonemes. So this is the first ever step of language development which any infant would go through. The second step, also known as phonological awareness, is when the child combines combines sounds into one word. For example, if a child says ma or pa, and combinedly the child, if repeats the word ma twice, it becomes the word mama. So this transitions from blabbering random sounds, which was the phoneme step, and then combining them into one word is known as phonological awareness, where the child learns how to form words. The next step is forming meaningful statements. So from words, now the child has to understand how to combine certain words following certain rules and regulations into one sentence which other people can also understand. The next step is understanding words and sentences, which are also known as semantics. Here, whatever other person is trying to communicate to the child will learn to say it, or child will learn to understand it. So communication comes in two ways. One is us communicating what we want to say, and the next is us trying to understand what the other person wants to communicate with us. The last step remains using language in social interactions, which is also known as pragmatics. So after these steps have been attained, once the child has understood what phonemes are, what words are, how to combine two random sounds into one word, and then how to combine two random words into a sentence, after that the child needs to understand where to use an appropriate sentence in different social settings. So this is known as pragmatics. This is the later stage of language development which only happens as a toddler grows up. So what statement, what pitch or what tone to use in what social statement or what social situation is what this steps focuses about. So these are the steps how language starts to develop in an infant and how it proceeds to keep developing throughout the lifespan. So next, we'll be talking about what the first words mean. So whenever an infant talks just one single word, let's say the first word of any infant would be mostly mama or papa. So the word mama or papa does not represent just that word. Whatever the first word infant says, that word is actually conveying a meaning worth of a lot of sentences. For example, whenever an infant murmurs the word mama, he or she is not randomly just saying the word, or he or she does not understand that the word meaning of mama is the mother of the baby. The infant just processes that if I say the word mama, this person would come along and tell me something, or this person would respond to me in a certain way. That is how an infant proceeds it. Similarly, if an infant says the word mama, the infant is trying to call the person. Maybe the sentence meaning underlying it is mama come here or mama I am hungry. So the first word that an infant says contains meanings of an entire sentence. That's why these phrases are known as hollow phrases, because even though the infant is just saying a word, it has a lot of other meanings which the infant's mother or parents around has to interpret. Catherine Nelson in 1973 studied 18 infants and what their first 50 words were. After studying this, she understood that the first 50 words that any infant learns is actually representation of the objects and people that they see around them. So, with their mother, with their father, they have a daily interaction. That is the reason behind their first words being that. And toys around them, or objects, tables, whatever they interact with and whatever they hear on a daily basis is what they'll be saying in the first 50 words that they learn in the beginning. So, initial language acquisition proceeds literally one word at a time. Then later on, it develops into 3 to 4 words, and the child might increase the number of words that the child is learning in a day drastically as well. Another concept which comes under this is vocabulary spurt. So, around 18 months, when the child has mastered about 30 to 50 words, the pace of learning words quickens dramatically. For example, if a child was learning one word per day as in the initial months of their life, eventually, when the child hits age 2 or age 3, the number of words the child processes in one day dramatically shoots up. This phenomena is known as vocabulary spurt. So, during vocabulary spurt, toddler seems to arrive at a critical realization that everything around them has a name, and if they learn that name, they'll be able to communicate their needs and wants easily with people around them. So, they'll learn that the table that they want or milk that they want has a name, and my mama also understands that milk has a name which is called milk. So, like that, they would understand that everything has a name, and it will be easier for them to communicate what they want or what other person is trying to tell to them in that manner. So, that was one point which comes under vocabulary spurt. Now, let's discuss about some of the errors infants commit while learning language or while understanding this complex organization which is language. The first error is overextension. So, using a word to refer to a wide range of objects or events. From the word itself, we can understand when a toddler learns something, let's say that when a toddler firstly sees a dog and understands that dog is the word that I should use whenever I want to refer to this particular animal. But later on, the child also calls a cow a dog. Why? Or a cat a dog? Because dog is just 4 head and it is a hairy animal with 4 legs. So the child now tries to understand or tries to see any of the 4 animals which have 4 legs as a dog. So here the child is using one word to represent a lot of objects or objects which have different meanings associated to them. This error is known as overextension. The next error is known as underextension. So getting the semantic rights or discriminating between similarities and differences is what this is all about. So in underextension, the child fails to understand that one word could have several meanings. For example, if the child has a pet name, pet dog, the child will understand, okay, my pet, this particular dog is called dog. And the child will also fail to understand that there are many different kinds of dogs and we also call them dogs. So this error is known as underextension, where the child fails to understand that one word can represent a lot of objects with little bit of discrimination and little bit of differences. Now let's discuss about later language development. So the phases that we were discussing till now are the phases which are happening before the age of 3, preferably as toddlers. So as the child starts to go to the school, their pronunciation skills increase. So the way they understand a word, the way they convey the word increases. And the number of vocabulary, the number of words they know also shoots up dramatically. Children are also mastering pragmatics at this point. So for example, they are understanding how to appropriately use language in different social contexts and how to use tone, how to talk to different people, how to talk to their mother. So the basic differentiation between the whatever I say to my mother, I might not be able to convey it in the same way to my teacher. So this appropriateness of language in different social contexts is something they are mastering as they interact with more peers and more people when they go on to school, etc. Another thing they master is contextualized language. So how to use a same sentence in different contexts is something that they are learning right now. So even if I say the same sentence to my teacher or my friend, depending on the concept or the context, the meaning can differ. This understanding also comes in as in the later language development stages. Another point is meta-linguistic awareness. So the word meta represents anything which is beyond something. So metacognition is when I'm thinking about thinking. Similarly, meta-linguistic awareness is when I'm thinking about language as a organization of certain words, sentences, etc. So the point where a child understands that English is a language and that is also a subject, because now the child understands the concept of language. That is meta-linguistic awareness, and it usually happens in the adolescent as the child enters adolescence, where he or she understands language as a system now. Now, knowledge of semantics of language, word meanings often expands during adulthood, and it lasts at least until the person is 60 or 70 or until 80s, or for some people it's even 90s if the brain degeneration does not happen. So the learning is that language learning never actually stops after a point of time. As we read more, as we understand, as we expand our horizon of vocabulary, it goes up and it can have an impact on our life maybe throughout. So from this beginning when an infant is learning phonemes like ma, pa, and then from there making words into mama, and from there learning long sentence making, and then context of the language, and then the vocabulary and the mastering of language just goes on throughout entire life. So this is how language learning takes place, and this is how language, the system of language is perceived by us humans from infancy to old age. Thank you.